In the recent patch 14.16, Riot made a subtle but hugely impactful change that hasn't really picked up much attention, likely because the majority of the player base doesn't quite understand how large of an impact this change brings to the game. The change I'm talking about is, of course, the change to the early game death timers. Now, death timers are being made longer by 4 seconds across the board between levels 1 to 8, as well as a 2-second increase to the death timers once you get to level 9. Riot said themselves in the patch notes that these death timers were meant to be a counter to a very common situation that's happened in solo lanes recently, where someone would get solo killed in lane, but then respawn so quickly due to the death timer being short that they could TP back to lane and prevent the wave from crashing into tower, which in some situations would actually leave them advantage off of having their own death. As well as increasing the death timers, Riot also implemented a change to death guards being the increased movement speed that you gain out of base after dying. Death guards were buffed to last longer out of base, with the intention to make up for the increased death timers that was shipped alongside this change. This way, people who teleport back to lane are punished by having longer death timers, but people who run back to lane aren't affected by this change, as the longer time spent dead is made up for with the increased movement speed running out of base because of death guards being buffed. But this isn't exactly what happened with the patch. Just look at this side-by-side comparison. Now, the player on the left is playing on a previous patch that took place just before this change, meaning that their death timer is shorter, and so they get a bit of a head start out of base. Pay special attention now to their movement speed out of base from the death guards, and note the point where that movement speed falls off. Now look over at our player on the right, who is playing on the current patch after the longer death timers. Now, the longer death timer means that they are slower out of base, but their death guards last a lot longer here, meaning they make up a lot of that lost ground. But most importantly to note here is that our player on the right on the newer patch is still almost 3 seconds slower to get to the blue buff. Riot tried to compensate for the longer early game death timers by buffing death guards, but they didn't compensate for this change enough, meaning it now takes considerably longer for you to get out of base after you respawn, which will have huge consequences for all roles in the early game, but especially for junglers and supports.
My name's Rogue and I played League of Legends professionally for 7 years. Now I'm a full-time content creator and coach for all ranks Iron through to Challenger. So if you want more information of what a coaching session with me will look like, you can find more information by following the link in the video description below.
And while you're in the description, you'll also find the link to my Patreon, where I post all of the recordings of my best coaching sessions in full, with almost 1,000 hours of content currently available, all sorted by role and rank, including sessions where I coach for professional level teams. You can get a glimpse of what pro level league looks like from the inside. That's why whatever you're looking for, you'll easily be able to find something that's going to help you improve, no matter your rank. As mentioned in the video intro, with these changes you'll be coming out of base around 2.5 to 3 seconds slower, and whilst coming out of base 3 seconds slower doesn't sound like a lot, it really is. So before showing you how you can act on these changes to improve your own level of play, I wanted to first show you just how many times in one single game this 3-second delay ended up mattering. And for full transparency, this replay is not cherry picked, it's literally the first one I opened. The impacts of these changes are not hard to find. We start off by watching our hero Bard player trying to help out in a teamfight before sadly dying. Now begins his long death timer where he gets to think about the consequences of his actions, or more likely, watch some Netflix on his second monitor. Now as soon as Bard respawns, he instantly starts running out of base back to bot lane, where his teammate Caitlyn is in the middle of a battle with the enemy ADC. Bard portals over the wall, but barely doesn't make it in time to finish off the kill in center. Now, had Bard been playing on the previous patch, he would have arrived about 2 seconds earlier, meaning at this moment, he would have finished coming through that portal, easily netting him this kill in center. But instead, she gets away. Just a few minutes later, Bard encounters his second death of the game, where he again has the opportunity to catch up on the next season of Emily in Paris. Isn't Gabriel just so dreamy? I don't know, Bard. I kind of prefer Alfie. There's just something about his English accent. Alright, enough daydreaming, Bard. It's time to head back to lane. If we pan our camera to bot lane, it turns out that the bot lane is a war zone right now. One that Bard gets to at exactly the same time as the Kindred and Hui, who zone him out of the fight completely. And of course, had Bard arrived 2 to 3 seconds quicker, the difference to this fight would have been massive. Most likely this would have come to 2 free kills and a portal to safety for our low health ally Xin Zhao, but instead our teammate Xin Zhao dies to the enemy, and the enemy center gets away. Now, frustratingly, for Bard, the change for this recent patch has changed the outcome of a few fights for him in just this game alone. But it's this final fight where you start to get the idea of the insane level skill expression that this new change offers to us now. Remember, when Bard died mid, it was to the enemy Kindred. The same Kindred who was blocking Bard from entering the fight that happened after he respawned on bot lane. And this is where the skill expression comes into effect. Now, taking us back to the gank mid where our Bard player died, we're going to flip this a little bit, and instead of watching it from the POV of the Bard player, we're going to watch from the POV of his opponent, the Kindred, to get a better idea of how we can understand how to use these death timers against our opponent. Alright, good job Kindred, you countered the gank, now let's take stock of this situation. Our Kindred has 1.4k gold, our mid laner Quay has 1.8k, we are in dire need of a recall, and the neutral objective Dragon is sitting there waiting for us to take. And this is where we can start doing something interesting, using our opponent's death timers against them. If our opponent Bard is respawning in 19 seconds, and we recall now, the time it takes to get to base of the recall is 8 seconds, meaning we're going to have a lot of leeway there to get to contested territory before him. And if we just look at what the red team's vision looks like on the bot side right now, you can start to see the potential for a play here. We already know we're going to get out of base 10 seconds before Bard now, especially with death timers being longer. We could easily be waiting for the Bard player here if he face checks, or more likely get to the bot lane fight earlier. Now our Kindred player here makes a bit of a mistake. She could have started recall when Bard's death timer said 18, but instead she wastes time and starts it 8 seconds later when his death timer says 10. Now in this situation, because of the new patch, Bard was slower out of base, and so Kindred barely makes it to this fight before him and changes the outcome of it. But our Kindred player also made a mistake here in delaying her tempo, and it's a huge missed opportunity. By using your opponent's death timers against them like that, you can preemptively enter the next sequence and get to contested territory before them, and in this case, we could either win that fight, or we could pick that Bard as he comes in to take vision for the dragon. Have you ever wondered why pro-level support players are so often rushing their upgraded boots before anything else? Well, of course it's for roaming, but it's also to make use of this tempo mechanic. Imagine two champions respawn or recall at exactly the same time. If they have the same movement speed, they will meet exactly in the center of the map in contested territory. But if one of these players has rushed upgraded boots whilst the other hasn't, then the player with the now higher movement speed will get there first, and the point of first contact will be pushed deeper into the enemy's jungle. Now consider champions like Pyke, Bard, or Blitzcrank that have immense movement speed steroids in their kit that help them to run faster out of base. These champions running so fast has the ability to push the line of first contact even deeper into the enemy territory, meaning not only do supports who rush movement speed have better roaming, but they have the ability to get to contested territory first, place wards that the enemy doesn't even know exists, and then camp on that vision, in position to react to an enemy who is now unknowingly face-checking you. It is this mechanic that has been massively altered because of the faster time out of base after dying. With death timers previously being so short, junglers and supports who die could generally run out of base and get to the contested territory before the opponent who killed them could recall and run there themselves. But now, with longer death timers and a longer time to come out of base after dying, it's more often the case that in these types of situations, it's the player who gets the kill, in our case the Kindred player, who will be the one to get to contested territory first and have the advantage going into the next sequence. So remember to recall fast, judge your speed based on your opponent's death timer, and if you do this well enough, your opponent literally won't be able to keep up. My name's Rogue, and thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video and you want to see more, remember to subscribe. Please do, it helps me out so much. And if you want to get your own coaching session with me, the link is down in the description below. Have a great day.